Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive. When I first started digging into Ardelyx, this biopharmaceutical company focusing on GI and kidney treatments, I was really struck by their focus on these often overlooked areas of medicine. You don't always hear about new IBS or chronic kidney disease treatments, right?
Right. It's not as glamorous as, say, cancer research or anti-aging,
Yeah.
but these are conditions that impact millions of people worldwide.
Exactly. And what's really interesting is that Ardelyx, they might be on the verge of a major breakout. Some analysts are even predicting they could hit $10 a share in 2025.
Wow, $10. That's ambitious.
It is. But there are some factors at play that could make it a real possibility. We're talking potential shifts in healthcare policy and some pretty exciting company developments that could really shake things up.
So what is it about Ardelyx that has people so excited?
Well, for starters, they're not just going after the obvious big market drugs. They're really focusing on what are called unmet medical needs. Their two main products kind of demonstrate this. Ibsrela, which targets irritable bowel syndrome with constipation, and tenapanor, which is designed to manage serum phosphorus in patients on dialysis for chronic kidney disease.
So they're tackling those niche areas, those conditions that often don't get enough attention.
Exactly. And that brings us to tenapanor and this potential game changer on the horizon. There's a healthcare bill making its way through Congress, and if it passes, it could be huge for Ardelyx.
Oh yeah, I've heard about this one. This bill aims to expand Medicare coverage for newer treatments.
Yeah. Now you might be thinking, why is that such a big deal? Well, right now, regulations make it really difficult for innovative treatments like tenapanor to be widely prescribed. Doctors might hesitate to prescribe it because reimbursement through Medicare is limited.
Ah, I see. So it's like developing this incredible new tool, but then being told you can only use it in very specific situations.
Exactly. And it can be frustrating for both doctors and patients. But if this bill goes through, it could remove those barriers, leading to wider access for patients, better reimbursement rates, and potentially a significant jump in tenapanor sales.
That makes sense. So this bill could be a real catalyst for Ardelyx's growth. And what's even more encouraging is that it has bipartisan support.
Right. Which, as you know, is pretty rare in this political climate. This means it actually has a decent chance of becoming law sometime next year.
That bipartisan support is definitely a good sign. It suggests that lawmakers on both sides recognize the need to make these newer treatments more accessible to patients.
Absolutely. Now, while we wait to see what happens with the bill, Ardelyx isn't just sitting around. They're actively making moves to drive their success. And actually, their third quarter results for this year were pretty impressive.
Oh, yeah. What stood out to you from those results?
Well, first off, tenapanor is already doing well, even with the current restrictions. They're seeing a surge in prescriptions, especially among nephrologists. But here's where it gets even more interesting. They're expanding into Europe and are currently waiting for regulatory approval for tenapanor there.
Expanding into Europe is a smart move. The global demand for chronic kidney disease therapies is on the rise, and Europe represents a huge new market for Ardelyx. If they can get tenapanor approved there, the possibilities are significant.
I know, right? And it's not just Europe. They're also forming strategic alliances. They've partnered with Kyowa Kirin to bring tenapanor to the Japanese market, and early projections suggest it could be a major revenue driver.
Partnerships like that are essential for companies like Ardelyx. Think about it. They get to tap into the expertise and resources of these larger, more established companies to navigate the often complex regulatory processes and break into new markets more effectively. It's a win-win for both sides.
Okay, so we've got potential policy changes that could be game-changing, a drug that's already proving its worth, expansion into new global markets, and these strategic partnerships. Now let's talk about that $10 per share projection for 2025. Is that realistic or is it just hype?
Honestly, when I first saw that $10 target, I was a bit skeptical. It's a bold prediction, no doubt.
Yeah.
But when you factor in the company's strong fundamentals, things like their solid product pipeline and their growing revenue stream, it's not completely out of the realm of possibility.
So you're saying there's a solid foundation there, but that HR bill passing could be a significant boost.
Exactly. If that bill passes, it could really accelerate tenapanor's market penetration. More doctors will feel comfortable prescribing it, knowing that their patients will have coverage, and that could translate into a major revenue jump for Ardelyx.
So it's not all riding on the HR bill, but it could be a major catalyst. And then there's those European and Japanese markets. If they get the green light and successfully launch tenapanor in those regions, that could add another significant revenue stream.
Absolutely. And they've been smart about strengthening their financial position. They've raised capital recently, which gives them the resources to expand strategically and weather any potential market storms.
Right. That financial stability is key. It attracts investors, and we're seeing increasing interest from institutional investors, especially those focused on the biotech sector. That's a positive sign. It suggests growing confidence in Ardelyx's future.
It definitely does. Now, of course, there are always risks involved with any investment, especially in the biotech world. But Ardelyx seems to be doing a lot of things, right? They've got a promising product, they're expanding strategically, and they're attracting investors.
Okay, so there's definitely a lot of potential here, but let's be real. What about the potential downsides? Is this a risky bet, or could Ardelyx be a hidden gem waiting to be discovered? What are your thoughts?
Well, the biotech world is inherently unpredictable. There are always regulatory hurdles to overcome, clinical trial, results can be unexpected, and the competition is fierce. But with that said, Ardelyx is definitely a company to watch. It'll be interesting to see how things play out over the next few years.
So what you're saying is stay tuned. Things could get very interesting for Ardelyx. And it's not just about Ardelyx. Their story reflects some broader trends we're seeing in the healthcare industry. The convergence of scientific innovation, regulatory policies, and market forces is creating both exciting opportunities and significant challenges for companies like Ardelyx.
It's a dynamic time to be involved in healthcare, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's true. The biotech world, it's not always clear-cut. There's always a certain level of risk. You know, that HR bill we were talking about.
Right.
Even with bipartisan support, there's still no guarantee it'll actually pass.
Right. And even if it does become law, the specifics of how it actually expands coverage could really impact how quickly tenofovir is adopted.
Exactly. We can't just assume it'll be an instant game changer. So then what about their plans for Europe and Japan? What kind of roadblocks do you think they might face trying to break into those markets?
Yeah. What are your thoughts on that? Well, getting the drug approved in those regions, that's just the first hurdle. They'll be dealing with different healthcare systems in each country. So setting up those distribution networks and tailoring their marketing to fit those specific cultural nuances, that's going to be key. It's a whole different playing field.
It is. It's definitely way more complex than just getting a thumbs up from regulators.
Yeah.
Makes you realize how much goes into launching a drug globally.
Absolutely. And let's not forget about the competition. There are other companies out there, working on treatments for both IBS and chronic kidney disease. So Ardelyx is going to have to show that their products offer a real advantage over what's already available.
Yeah, that's a good point. When I look at their pipeline, what I find interesting is their focus on this specific mechanism of action, targeting these particular receptors in the gut. And this approach, it has shown some real promise in treating those patient populations who haven't had success with other therapies. So that could be a major differentiator for them.
Absolutely. You've hit on a key point there. It's not just about developing a treatment. It's about finding the right patients for that treatment, the ones who will truly benefit. And that's where this targeted approach of Ardelyx's could really give them an edge.
For sure. Now, they've had these recent capital raises, which has given them some breathing room financially. But I'm curious about the longer-term picture. Managing cash flow is always a challenge in biotech, especially with the research and development costs being so high.
Yeah, that's definitely a valid concern. Ardelyx, they're going to need to manage their resources very carefully and continue attracting those investors if they want to stay competitive. It's a constant balancing act between funding those ongoing research efforts and bringing those products to market.
Right. So for someone like me who's maybe interested in investing in Ardelyx, what are some key things to watch for besides the HR bill?
Well, clinical trial data, that's always crucial. Investors need to pay close attention to the results that are coming out for both Ibsrela and tenofovir. Are they consistently proving to be effective and safe? Are there any unexpected side effects that are emerging? These are really important questions.
Yeah, because even with those favorable policy changes, the drugs themselves ultimately have to deliver. It's not just about navigating the regulatory landscape. It's about actually developing treatments that make a difference.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And also, don't forget about their international expansion efforts. Keep an eye out for announcements about regulatory approvals, new partnerships that they might form, and of course, those all-important sales figures from Europe and Japan. Those numbers, they're going to tell us a lot about how their global strategy is playing out.
So we've got the HR bill, the clinical trials, the international expansion. It's a lot to keep track of.
It is, but it shows how dynamic the biotech industry really is. It's this interplay between the science, the regulations, and those market forces. And this makes it both exciting and challenging for companies like Ardelyx.
It's like solving a multi-dimensional puzzle trying to figure out how all these pieces fit together.
That's a great way to put it. Now with all these factors at play, some analysts are even saying that Ardelyx could hit $10 a share by 2025. It's a bold prediction, and some people are skeptical. But when you consider everything we've discussed today, it's not entirely out of the question.
It really makes you wonder what the future holds for them. So is Ardelyx on the brink of a major breakthrough, or are we getting ahead of ourselves?
Well, I wouldn't say we're getting ahead of ourselves. There's definitely a lot of potential there, but it's important to be realistic about those risks. The biotech world, it's inherently unpredictable. There are always things that could happen that could throw them off course.
So we need to balance our excitement with a healthy dose of caution, for sure. Ardelyx is at a pivotal moment, and the next few months, they're going to be crucial in determining which way they go. What would you say is the most important thing for our listeners to take away from this deep dive?
I think the main takeaway is that Ardelyx is a company with a lot of potential, but they're navigating a very complex and ever-changing landscape. The decisions they make in the coming months and the outcomes of those decisions are going to ultimately determine whether they achieve those ambitious goals.
It's a real cliffhanger. I know I'll be watching their progress closely. Now, while we've been focusing specifically on Ardelyx, their story really shines a light on some of those larger trends that are shaping the world of healthcare innovation and investment. What are some of the things that are catching your eye these days?
Yeah, it feels like we're in this really exciting time for healthcare. With all these advancements happening, it's amazing to see. And for someone like me who's not a scientist but is just fascinated by all this stuff, it's really mind-blowing. What are some of the trends that you're finding particularly interesting right now? Well, one of the things that really stands out to me is this growing emphasis on personalized medicine. We're moving away from this one-size-fits-all approach to treatment and towards therapies that are specifically tailored to an individual's genetic makeup, their lifestyle, their specific needs. It's like having a custom-made treatment plan just for you.
Wow, that's incredible. It sounds like something out of science fiction, but it's actually becoming a reality. What's driving this shift towards personalized medicine?
A big part of it is the incredible progress we've made in genomics and data analytics. We now have the tools to analyze huge amounts of biological data and identify those specific biomarkers that can predict how a person might respond to a particular treatment. It's like having this personalized roadmap for your health.
So instead of just addressing the symptoms, we're getting down to the root cause and developing therapies that are much more targeted and effective. That's amazing. But I imagine it's also incredibly complex and expensive to develop these personalized treatments.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
And that leads us to another major trend that's really disrupting the healthcare industry. The use of artificial intelligence and machine learning. We're talking about AI that can analyze medical images, help with drug discovery, predict patient outcomes, even assist with surgery. It's like having this super-powered assistant for doctors and researchers.
AI in healthcare. That's fascinating. So what does all this mean for someone who might be interested in investing in this space? What are some of the potential opportunities and challenges they should be aware of?
Well, the healthcare sector is ripe for disruption. And those companies that are embracing these new technologies, they have the potential for some serious growth. Think about it. AI can speed up drug discovery, reduce those development costs, and help create more precise and effective treatments. That's a really attractive proposition for investors.
But it's also a very rapidly evolving landscape with a lot of unknowns, so there's inherently more risk involved, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Not every new technology is going to be a success story. And identifying those companies that are going to make it requires careful research and due diligence.
Yeah.
It's not just about jumping on the AI bandwagon. It's about finding those companies that are using these technologies strategically and responsibly.
So if you were advising someone who wants to invest in this space, what would you tell them to look for? What are the key indicators of a company that's well-positioned for success in this new era of healthcare?
I'd say look for companies that are tackling those unmet medical needs with innovative solutions, like Ardelyx, for example. But beyond that, you want to see a strong leadership team with a proven track record, a solid intellectual property portfolio, and a clear path to actually bringing those products to market.
Yeah.
It's not just about being innovative, it's also about having a sound business plan.
That's some really good advice. And diversification is always important too, right?
Absolutely. You never want to put all your eggs in one basket. Spread your investments across different companies in different areas of healthcare. That way you're mitigating your risk and increasing your chances of success.
This deep dive has been incredibly insightful. We've explored the ins and outs of Ardelyx and their potential for growth, and we've also discussed those larger trends that are shaping the future of healthcare. If you had to sum up everything we've talked about today into one key takeaway for our listeners, what would it be?
I think the main message is this. The healthcare industry is undergoing this profound transformation. And while there are always risks involved, the potential for groundbreaking innovation and really improving people's lives, It's huge. It's a really exciting time to be following this sector. And we're really just at the beginning of what promises to be a revolutionary journey.
So stay curious, stay informed, and who knows, maybe you'll be part of the next big breakthrough that changes the world. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.